2 years ago, the group of Polish professors from the Academy of Science and Technology and Warsaw University of Technology decided to undertake the action for the organization of the so-called Smolensk conference, because we found that the report prepared by Russians and prepared by the governmental committee got some faults. So they are not precisely selling and interpreting the whole measurements available for this plane which crashed, and in the crash almost 100 people were killed, together with Polish President Lech Kaczyński. And we tried to find sponsorship from the governmental bodies sponsoring science and technologies. We were looking for someone who could help us to set the research program for the investigation of this catastrophe from the point of view of mathematics, mechanics, physics, by the way, and chemistry. Almost 100 professors joined us within 1 year, and we were able to organize the conference at the day of 22nd October of 2012. And the conference was our great success. We presented more than 30 papers. All of them were precisely checked and verified by referees. At least one of them had to have a positive opinion. So quite recently, after several months, we prepared the proceedings of this conference. Is very well published, and we gave these proceedings to the governmental body, just giving them information where we what we did and where we arrived with the private investigation of this catastrophe. The story is very sad that the Attorney General of Poland is still not able to assess what was the main reason of the catastrophe. The press, which is media supporting the government, are just performing the special disinformation game with the society, presenting the false concept of the misinterpretation of the reason of this catastrophe. So they officially, the Polish and Russian report presented the opinion that the crash was as the result of the bridge interaction with the presidential plane weak. It is very easy to evaluate such concept. Everyone can calculate very easy, considering that the plane was a mass equal about 100 tons, run with the speed of velocity, of 300 kilometers per hour. And the birch just contacted with the wing, and the width of the wing was 1.5 meters, and it is easy to evaluate the ratio between the cutting energy and the kinetic energy. It is when I evaluated the first time, I was very much surprised, because what I did, I made a calculation: m times square velocity divided by 2, and the force, cutting force, I evaluated as the, say, displacement, and I assumed that the cutting force was 10 tons. Obviously, it was too much, but I would like to avoid the criticism from propaganda, governmental propaganda. When I divided this, say, 2 meters times 10 tons forces by the kinetic energy, I was very much surprised for the evaluation. It was 1 divided by 1 million. So, considering this situation, it was obvious that the plane, which was going further, as say, with the velocity of 300 kilometers per hour and the mass of 100 tons, cannot be, say, disrupted. The path is impossible that it change the path. Probably such a crash would not have any effect for the path of the plane. Later on, one of our colleagues from the United States confirmed that the wing couldn't be cut by the birch. Birch, by the way, was not very fit, and or probably was blown, or say, just cut by the strong wind a few days before this catastrophe. Anyway, that was the normal approach of MAK, the so-called International Russian Committee for the Investigation of Catastrophes. And it was repeated by the Polish report, prepared by the committee led by the Minister of Interior, Mr. Miller. And at the end of the day, obviously, that each person who knows, say, who graduated high school cannot trust that the birch was the reason for the catastrophe. So and on the top of this, they presented several other reasons. By the way, using the regulations for the aviation organizations, and they said that the major reason of the catastrophe was that the plane moved below the altitude of 100 meters, which is very dangerous, and doesn't matter what happened later, it was the major reason for the catastrophe. And I must tell you that for the first education, because I graduated 2 faculties, first faculty of construction of military objects, and I am expert in rocket design and missile design, and later I graduated the Department of Mathematics and Applied Mathematics of Warsaw University. I started to find in our proofs that I am right. So I observed the fragmentation of the body of this plane, and I found that the plane was broken in 3 pieces along the, say, X main dimension, and also the wings were cut in the places where the stiffness difference was the major. So it was fully, say, in agreement of my education and my further study in mechanics. I must tell you that I am working on mechanical sciences, say, finite element calculation, design of, say, the turbine engines. I'm collaborating with WSK Rzeszów, which is subsidiary of Pratt & Whitney. So I'm involved in this kind of research for a number of years. And obviously, having such education and experience, I was very reluctant to trust that the reasons listed in both reports are false, that it is purely propaganda. And then a group of my colleagues, about 100 professors, started to investigate the situation further. What problems we've got? First of all, we are suffering with the lack of data, because the whole rack is still in Russia. The whole documentation, which was recorded on the old speedometers and the black boxes and say GPS boxes and GPS units, are still belong to Russia, are still not belong to Poland, but those units are still kept by Russians. And Polish government is not very actively demanding the return of goods which belong to the Republic of Poland, by the way. Another thing is that until now, after 3 years of investigation, the investigating committees did not reconstruct the wreck, which is the fundamental duty for the investigator. Someone who is undertaking the investigation according to the Chicago Treaty at first must reconstruct the wreck. And it was done in Lockerbie, it was done in the close to the New York airport, where plane crashed and debris were sinking in the ocean. So, and now the committee, especially Polish propaganda and committee, is saying that they did not consider that the wreck could have any evidences for the study of the catastrophe. But on the film prepared by Anita Gargas, we could see the debris, we could see the artifacts, very small pieces. So my interpretation was very cruel for the Polish government and for the committee. I assessed that it was that the reason for the catastrophe was the explosion, at least one, on the board of this plane. Perfectly, because only this situation can produce the wave which can destroy the structure in this order, up to this, say, small debris fragmentation. The explosion is also confirmed observing the bodies of, say, victims, bodies of victims. So everyone who had a little bit imagination and education for the catastrophe, and I am educated in as the say, expert in the medical judgment, because after my study there was a lack of people with my specialty, so I spent 1 year and I was educated after my study in military technology and with the Academy of Medical Sciences. And it was very easy for me to recognize who was who was killed by the explosion and who was killed by other reasons, by the contact with hard pieces. And when I have seen the documentation of the bodies fragmentation, it was written that the whole area was split into 3 sub areas. In the first area, the bodies were slightly destroyed. In the second one, a little bit more advanced was destruction. And in the third area was really the pieces of the body, such as eye, the part of nose, the part of finger, and so on, so on. And another thing which I should mention is that all victims were naked. They had no clothes on the body. And after this evaluation and study, I concluded that the explosion was on the board happened owing to deployment or installation of two bombs of thermofuel bombs, which was also confirmed by another evidences. In such bombs, the explosives is not burning till the end. So TNT is used for spraying the, powder, aluminium powder, and also immediately after the powder is burning out, and then the initial small explosion as result is followed by the very strong explosion of the powder. And then this is the evidences, several evidences were confirmed by the detection of TNT debris and pieces on the victims' clothes, and also belts which they were wrapped out to the chairs. In our story is that when we are looking for the wreck, it is easy to see that inside nothing remained, right? And also in our, when you are looking for the photo from the top of the wreck, you can see that there is only few pieces of the cockpit, right? And the committee wrote that the reason for the destruction of the cockpit is that the biggest part of the plane just, pressed and destroyed the cockpit. But it is very easy for the men like me, who understands the mechanics, to assess that it is false. It is really not true. I think that the whole cockpit with people, with victims, were blown further, and this is the reason that destruction is so severe. There is nothing more than the pieces of the floor of the cockpit, right? And I think that those bombs were installed in the equipment of the anti-fire equipment which was deployed or installed on the plane. This is already presented during two conferences. One of them I was selected as the chairman. I chaired the first conference, and also later, at the beginning of this year, students in Warsaw, Association of Polish PhD students, asked me to chair the conference which they organized. It was composed of three various sessions, law and legal issues of the preparation of the President Lech Kaczynski visit in Russia, and the second was mechanical engineering, structure, design and fragmentation and other issues. This session I was chair, and also the next one was for the political interpretation of the catastrophe. So generally speaking, both of those sessions, conferences, the first one was not even mentioned in the so-called mainstream of Polish media, which we call the governmental supporting media. They did not even mention that such conference occurred, but we published the whole conference, 8.5 hours, is available on the internet, and is available when you will write the Smolensk crash 2012, then you will see the full report of the record of the conference. It's the same you can find the typing Smolensk 2013 in Warsaw, and then you can get to the web pages where the second conference is presented. On the top of everything what I said, I would like to tell you that our lawyers just concluded during the second conference that the committee led by the Minister of Interior, Mr. Miller, was illegally called, and the document which they prepared is also illegal from the legal point of view and from the constitutional point of view for the Republic of Poland. But if you are going through the whole papers and media, they are still saying that the document is legal, official, say, state document of the Republic of Poland. On Monday, during the debate in Polish TV, the first time ever organized with the, say, participation of the, say, independent investigators. I represented those investigators. I was sitting in the studio. When I said that the commit was illegal and the document was illegal, was the first time ever this opinion was presented first time ever in public TV. And I know that people were shocked. And this is why I called it. I presented this opinion, and so far no one set the case against me, because I was consulted by our lawyers. But yesterday, for example, after my interview for the first program of Polish TV, they presented my opinion, and shortly after that, they show the conference led by Minister Miller a year ago, where it was opinion was presented completely opposite, that the committee presented the legal document and the investigation is complete. This morning I had the interview with another say TV station, Polsat, which is addressed mostly for foreign for Poles who are living outside of Poland, and also is available, is reachable by Polish TV customers. So I said that I submitted the appeal for the Prime Minister Donald Tusk to get together with us, to invite us, say, private or independent investigators for the meeting, and we would like to present him our results, and further on we can speak to the, say, official committee led by Minister Miller. This committee is non-active for the last year because we completed the activity, and also the committee which the Prime Minister called just 2 days ago, led by Mr. Lasek, who is say, leading person for the governmental propaganda that everything is correct. The, say, all procedures were completed, and the report has the final version, and there is not necessary to continue investigations further. My opinion is quite opposite, completely opposite, that the report is incompleted. I'm trying to, speaking to the Prime Minister, I was very polite and gentle, as he is representing the state. Doesn't matter what is my private opinion, so I must respect him as the citizen of Poland. And I hope that he will answer positively, but obviously this conference should be televised, should be say, specially prepared, and I think that it would be rather impossible to get together with other two committees without the witnesses. In the, say, witnesses, we dream to have the old TV station, cameraman and journalist. Then we will be sure that it would not be possible to manipulate, preparing the final statement after the conference. Thank you very much for your attention.